Part 46. My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Womeng. Chapter 451. It's almost like a fight, okay. Suliang was the only one in the center of the competition, with a look of despair on his face. What is this? However, in the midst of this chaos, the only exception is Jing Meng. While everyone was fighting for it, Jing Meng sat aside, blinking her eyes and looking at the people in front of her in confusion. I can't understand what they are doing at all. But even though she couldn't understand it, Jing Meng had her own ideas. After living in the Su family for so long, how could she not know the relationship between Wan Qing and the others and Suliang? And what about yourself? Thinking about it carefully, it seems that there is no difference between Sister Wanqing and the others. Should I join in too? After thinking about it, Jing Meng felt that it should be necessary. Even though I don't understand, I feel like I should do it when I see others doing it. This is probably what Jing Meng had in mind. Then, Jing Meng stood up directly and circled around everyone to check. After one lap, she decisively found an open space behind Suliang and walked over. Standing behind Suliang, he hugged Suliang's head tightly in his arms. He also deliberately pressed on his peak, sinking deep into it. Suliang felt a softness, elasticity, and fragrance that was different from his own lady's. Turning his head with difficulty, Suliang finally saw Jing Meng's face amid the obstruction of the mountains. Why did she come to join in the fun? There's enough chaos here. Even Mu Qingqian was a little confused. Master, why are you here to join in the fun? Master, do you still think this place is not chaotic enough? Are you not treating yourself as an outsider? The fight finally ended. In the end, the girls agreed to let each of them occupy Suliang for a period of time before the girls were willing to give up. When it was Mu Qingqian's turn, Mu Qingqian looked at the master practicing beside him, and the scene just now was still in his mind. Master is so proactive. You really don't regard yourself as an outsider. But no matter what, Jing Meng is a natural idiot, and his insight is almost negative. And this also gave Mu Qingqian some opportunities to operate. Her beautiful eyes turned. The last scene where she was bullied openly by her master was still lingering in her mind. Mu Qingqian felt that the time had come to implement her plan. First, I'll eat it first in front of master. Then, he kept staring at his master until his master sensed his gaze and looked over. Mu Qingqian directly hugged Suliang's neck and curled up in Suliang's arms. She raised her head and kissed her with her cherry lips. Hee. Look at how I can eat openly and openly in front of master. However, just as Mu Qingqian expected, Jing Meng didn't understand Mu Qingqian and Suliang's behavior at all. My apprentice has such a close relationship with Suliang, so it seems normal to do this. But Mu Qingqian didn't care about this. Although master doesn't understand it now, sooner or later he will understand it one day. At that time, when master will remember everything today. That would be interesting. However, thinking of this, Mu Qingqian noticed another thing. Should I start teaching master? Otherwise, with master's indifferent and cute character, when will he finally understand? How about we start by bringing master and senior brother Su into contact? At this thought, Mu Qingqian's eyes lit up, and she wanted to secretly create an opportunity for her man and his master to have close contact. After thinking about it, Mu Qingqian quickly said to the master while the master was still looking over, Master, senior brother Su has something to do with you. These words made Suliang look at Mu Qingqian doubtfully. What trouble could I have with Jing Meng? When Jing Meng heard that it was about Suliang, she didn't think much about it. She stood up directly, walked over, and asked, What do you want from me? Suliang just wanted to explain, but before he could say anything, he was cut off by Mu Qingqian. Master, senior brother Su wants to understand the art of swordsmanship and wants your guidance. Among us, Master, you are the strongest in swordsmanship. Even Uncle Wanqing is not as good as you. I definitely need your guidance. As soon as these words came out, Jingmeng showed a faint smile. Okay, come with me, I will take you to practice swordsmanship. Immediately. So he took Sul Yang, who was still ignorant and knew nothing, to a place where there was no one. The so-called swordsmanship is. Without saying a word, Jingmeng asked Sul Yang to get into position while he explained on the side. See this. Volume 1 # Chapter 428 Punishment, Qingqian becomes bad. Mu Qingqian simply hated iron. Master, you wasted the opportunity that I finally gave you. Are you worthy of me? Oops, really stupid. It seems that I still have to provide assists. Then. Mu Qingqian quickly stopped Master and said to him seriously, Master, once you practice cultivation, you just explain it, but the effect is not that good. What about that? Jingmeng was stunned for a moment, a little confused. Personal guidance is very useful. Mu Qingqian remained serious. I see. Jingmeng nodded, no doubt that he was there. Immediately. Then he walked straight behind Sul Yang and hugged Sul Yang. It fits tightly, and it has already deformed under the peak squeeze, but it feels a little more elastic. The fragrant fragrance lingers in your nostrils, and your delicate body behind you is gentle and silky. The most important is. Jingmeng, who didn't understand anything, didn't know any taboos or restraints. She didn't leave behind what she should touch or what she shouldn't touch. This put Sul Yang under a lot of pressure. At this moment. Even though Sul Yang was very experienced and had never had close contact with Jingmeng, he still felt a little embarrassed. There was no way, the beauty in his arms was too unconscious. With his current relationship with Jingmeng's behavior really made Sul Yang feel a bit overwhelmed. This is very difficult to do. After feeling the stiffness and unnaturalness of Sul Yang's body, Jingmeng felt a little strange, and unconsciously approached Sul Yang's ear. What's wrong? Why do I feel that something is wrong with you? The stunning beauty exhaled like blue, and sprayed it on her ears. It was warm and itchy. And, in order to make it easier to speak, Jingmeng pressed Sul Yang tighter. The peak, which was no weaker than Wanqing, instantly tended to be squeezed into a plane. Even. That flat belly pressed up unconsciously. Occasionally, something as smooth as silk would appear, making Sul Yang's body stiffer. For a while. Faced with Jingmeng's curiosity, Sul Yang didn't know how to answer. Not to mention that it is difficult to say this kind of thing. Even if you say it yourself, I'm afraid Jingmeng will never understand it, right? Alas, how did things develop into what they are now? All because of Qingqian. What is this girl doing? After thinking about this, Sul Yang glared at Mu Qingqian. However, facing Sul Yang's gaze, Mu Qingqian did not want to restrain herself. Instead, it got worse. Jingmeng's words were not concealed, so his voice was not too quiet, allowing Mu Qingqian to hear them clearly. My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Womeng. Chapter 452. He, Master, senior brother Su is in a bad state. It must be because there is something wrong with your teaching methods. Mu Qing smiled slightly and came closer. But. Jingmeng frowned and hesitated. You were the one who told me about this method. Why are you now saying that there is something wrong with my teacher's teaching method? Seeing Master's confused eyes, Mu Qingqian naturally knew what Master was thinking, so she smiled and said, Oh, Master, you didn't do your job properly. Who told you that personal teaching must come from behind? Is that so? Did it turn out that my position was wrong? Jingmeng blinked, feeling a little confused. It stands to reason that Jingmeng feels that he has a lot of experience in practicing swordsmanship and even teaching his disciples. His usual methods are very good and he doesn't need to listen to his disciples at all. But after all, the facts are right in front of us. Suliang's condition does not seem to be very good. And her previous breakthrough in swordsmanship seemed to be due to training like this. So, why not just listen to your apprentice for once? Nodding slightly, Jingmeng felt that her idea made sense. Then, she let go of Suliang directly. Then, before Suliang could take a breath, he came to Suliang's side again. As soon as her delicate and slender body got in, she leaned her back against Suliang and got into Suliang's arms. This time, Suliang felt even more difficult to bear. Although it is facing away, there is no pressure from the peak. However, the delicate body in her arms was soft and fragrant, and Jingmen's long ice blue hair lingered on the tip of her nose. The delicate fragrance lingers on the tip of the nose, refreshing the heart and mind. Especially the plump and straight figure behind her. Thanks to Jingmeng's tall and slender body, the location is very good. Occasionally, the inadvertent movement made Suliang feel pain and happiness. I really can't stand it. As a result, Suliang felt even stiffer. This change naturally cannot be hidden from Jingmen's perception, making Jingmen even more confused. At this time, Mu Qingqian was afraid that the world would not be in chaos. Master, you have to turn your head and face each other face to face. Is this the case? Jingmen was startled, then nodded, and turned around in Suliang's arms. All of a sudden, the delicate face appeared in front of me, and the peak pressed tightly. Suliang subconsciously stepped back a little, not wanting his inadvertent sword-drawing technique to scare Jingmen. However, Jingmen was ignorant of this and kept pushing forward. At this time, Suliang finally couldn't stand it anymore, and his mentality exploded. Mu Qingqian, you have gone too far. After a long time. After stumbling and stumbling, this swordsmanship teaching was finally over. Jingmeng sheathed her sword and said calmly, your talent for seeing is very high, but there is something wrong with your condition today. Maybe you are too tired. You should rest for now. We will continue after you recover. After that, he left without looking back. Seeing Jingmeng's back gradually disappearing. Call. Only then did Suliang let out a deep breath and slumped aside, feeling like he had no strength left in his body. Dealing with cute and startling dreams is really much more tiring than fighting a transcendental being. At this moment, Mu Qingqian chuckled and stepped forward. Senior brother Su, how do you feel? Master's teachings are good, right? Yeah, it's really good. Suliang gritted his teeth, and suddenly grabbed Mu Qingqian, pulled him into his arms, and hit him on the head violently. You girl, you are really causing trouble. It's just that you don't dissuade your master, but you are actually fanning the flames. What on earth do you want to do? Ah! Mu Qingqian screamed in surprise, but looked around with a guilty conscience. Why can't I understand what senior brother Su is saying? You won't understand. Suliang sneered at Mu Qingqian's pretense. Just kidding, Benjao has already done this trick you played countless times, okay. Nothing new, not at all. You are the one who encouraged your master to teach me the art of swordsmanship. Suliang rubbed Mu Qingqian's hair vigorously and scattered Mu Qingqian's hair. You are the one who wants to teach me personally. Later, I said I wanted to change places, and it was you. And, you could actually turn over. You girl, what do you want to do? When he said this, he suddenly remembered something. Suliang shook his head and laughed. You don't really want to teach your master first and then be a bully in front of me as you said before, right? Why not? Mu Qingqian raised her slender neck and said, Master can do it, why can't I do it? It's not like you don't know, Your master doesn't understand anything. Su Liang shook his head and lectured mercilessly, how could you do this? In response, Mu Qingqian just held her head high and said nothing. It was obvious that she was determined. See this? Su Liang's eyes narrowed slightly, that's all, now that you have made your decision, I won't stop you. But, as a disciple, you, as the disciple, have to be responsible for pacifying the things your master caused, right? In this way, it can be regarded as punishment. Say it. Su Liang hugged Mu Qingqian without saying a word. Then he threw it directly at himself. Well. Mu Qingqian groaned, rolled her eyes cutely, then softened and leaned over Su Liang. Tan's mouth was slightly open, breathing lightly, Mu Qing's brows were springy, her eyes were as charming as silk, and her pretty face was already blushing. Senior brother Su. Mu Qingqian murmured softly and hugged Su Liang's neck tightly. Immediately. Senior brother, junior sister, I want to move on my own. To this. Su Liang just whipped his whip inside, and after a few hundred, he stopped. On the contrary, Mu Qingqian couldn't accept it. The feeling of being just a little bit close to a breakthrough in cultivation, but being forcibly stopped, was really crazy. It really only takes one tap. He wanted to switch the power system, but was suppressed by Su Liang. He could only pouted and looked at Su Liang aggrievedly. However, Su Liang was extremely calm about this and didn't care at all. This is punishment. This girl has already started to get bad, how can she do it without punishing her? Otherwise, I'm afraid this girl will be the next Benjeo. How did Fairy Benjeo, who was once as cold as the moon and as pure as snow, turn into such a sinister appearance now? Maybe Su Liang really didn't notice. But Mu Qingqian in front of him already showed signs of that. Of course Su Liang couldn't let it go. Just kidding, having one Qin Benjeo in the family already gives you a headache, and having another one again is really unbearable. Then, as punishment, Su Liang failed to let Mu Qingqian succeed in the end. After pulling away, Su Liang gave Mu Qingqian another shudder, you are also very tired, go and have a rest. Senior brother Su, I don't want to rest yet. Mu Qingqian quickly hugged Su Liang's arm and let it sink into the peak, but deliberately let it sink deeper, I just want to be with senior brother Su now. No, you don't. Su Liang shook his head seriously. After acting coquettishly at Su Liang for a long time, seeing that Su Liang was not soft-hearted at all, Mu Qingqian had no choice but to leave with a sad face, looking back 3 times. Woo-hoo-hoo, senior brother Su is bullying people. Seeing Mu Qingqian's back disappear, Su Liang breathed a sigh of relief. First there were hot springs and waterfalls, then there was dealing with Jingmen, and then there was punishing Mu Qingqian. After all this tossing, even Su Liang felt like taking a rest. Especially when dealing with Jingmen, it is really tiring. However, Su Liang didn't expect that he had just sent away Jingmen and Mu Qingqian, but when he turned around, another person came. Feeling the special aura permeating the air, Su Liang sorted out the various insights that kept popping up in his heart. He was immersed in cultivation and couldn't extricate himself. However, but there was an indifferent and cold voice, are you done practicing? You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Womeng. Chapter 453. These words, which did not belong to the same woman's voice that Su Liang was familiar with, immediately made Su Liang wake up and looked at the beautiful figure in front of him in shock. Senior. Su Liang blinked, as if he didn't react, why are you here? When the person in front of him appeared, there was no sound or movement at all, and he didn't even show the slightest breath. This method of showing up is simply unpredictable. Teach you how to practice. Qianying's words are concise and concise. It was the lady who taught Suliang how to practice before. After hearing this, Suliang quickly stood up and saluted respectfully. Then he was in the mood to take a look at the person in front of him. She has a beautiful face, with black hair hanging behind her, as smooth as a waterfall. On the contrary, the skin that is set off is even more frosty than snow, as soft as gelatin. The beautiful face is not so much cold as it is indifferent and stiff without emotion. The beautiful legs are plump but not too slender. Above the slender waist, there is a proud peak, and there is even a faint tendency to surpass Wan Cheng. What a beautiful lady, so gorgeous. Thank you for your trouble, senior. Suliang bowed respectfully. But then, I remembered the way the lady showed up before, quietly and without a trace, obviously not wanting anyone to know. Then, Suliang asked curiously, Senior, do you have any concerns when you teach me how to practice? How you said that? I see that every time Senior appears, he is always sneaky. Last time he made Qing Qian faint. This time, he also chose a time when no one was around. This feeling makes people feel like they are stealing. Think carefully. A certain woman is looking for a certain man while the man's wife is not around. Even if he is here, he still has to feign secretly. It feels very much like that. Facing Suliang's words, the female monarch just shook her head and said, I don't understand what you are talking about at all. Ahem, senior, don't worry. Suliang quickly put the topic aside. The person in front of him was also a senior after all. He was teasing like this, which made him feel a little guilty. I wonder what senior will teach the juniors this time. Same as last time. The female monarch's voice was calm, however, this battle will allow you to understand the true meaning of immortality. You already know the way to transcendence, but your cultivation is still a little behind after all. If you want to achieve transcendence, you need to understand the true meaning of immortality and lay the solid foundation. Say it. Without waiting for Suliang's reply, Nu Jun took action without any politeness. To this, Suliang could only deal with it in a hurry. No different than before. As expected, Suliang was knocked to the ground. Then, watching helplessly, the stunning elder sister pushed herself to the ground and leaned down. Who on earth told her that licking her wounds would help her recovery? Unable to resist, Suliang lay flat on his back and almost shed tears of humiliation. After a lot of trouble, after Suliang recovered from his injuries. However, the female monarch did not disappear like last time. Instead, she stood in front of Suliang with her hands behind her back. Her voice was as indifferent as ever. Do you know what the real opportunity is in the realm of Taishian Kongming? Suliang followed Nu Jun. Hearing this, he shook his head in confusion. I hope senior will inform you. Volume 1 # Chapter 429 Sublimation in the Realm of Absolute Nothingness. Among them, there is a place called the Ancient Ruins. The real opportunities of this place are all there. Compared with it, the random atmosphere outside is nothing. However, if there is an opportunity, there must be great danger. After saying that, the female monarch turned her head and looked at Suliang. Do you want to enter one and give it a try? If it's possible, I would of course think about it. Suliang nodded. Cultivation is meant to compete with heaven and earth. Without the courage to face danger, Suliang would not be where he is now. However, after agreeing, Suliang still had many doubts in his mind. Why, senior, are you so familiar with this place? Even if you know what hidden opportunities there are, this is already like your own back garden, right? He must have the opportunity to go in and out here often, or even be the owner of this place. At this moment, Suliang had some suspicions about the true identity of the eldest sister in front of him. Is it possible that this eldest sister is a big shot in the Holy Land? Faced with Suliang's question, Nujun did not answer. Shaking her head, Nujun suddenly reached out and drew forward. Immediately, a crack suddenly appeared in front of Suliang and her. In that crack, there is a seemingly eternal aura, which has been passed down from ancient times to the present, with a feeling of destruction and dilapidation. I have opened the entrance to the ancient ruins for you. The female monarch said calmly, after entering, be careful and go ahead. Say it. Before Suliang could respond, Nujun suddenly waved her hand. A powerful force appeared, directly hugging Suliang, and threw Suliang into the ancient ruins. And this moment, Suliang felt his eyes go dark, and the desolation and ancient aura that came towards him made him feel a little unsteady. And when he recovered and opened his eyes, in front of Suliang, there were several finely crafted war puppets, filing out, extremely fierce. The weapons wielded in the hands of the puppet war puppets all have the strength of the immortality realm. The strength of the immortal realm is naturally nothing to Suliang. However, these warriors cooperated extremely well, and as they moved around, there was a special momentum rising. Take it out alone and Suliang can be destroyed easily. However, these warriors unite, and even before they fight, Suliang feels faintly troubled. This is amazing. Suliang frowned slightly, and slowly drew out his long sword without any intention of looking down upon him. He understood that these puppets in front of him were a test for him. However, just when he was about to take action, the scenery around him suddenly changed. In a place that was still like ruins, those ruins suddenly disappeared. What replaced it was a shocking and majestic battlefield. And immediately, countless figures rushed in from the battlefield, and in an instant, they were fighting together. Moment. All kinds of means came one after another, and their power was unimaginable. The spiritual energy was in chaos, and as the light shone, the space here seemed to be in turmoil. However, Suliang, who was inside, showed no fear at all. He had already noticed that everything that suddenly appeared seemed like an illusion, just a reenactment of the battlefield in the past. It can't hurt him. But seeing these people move mountains and reclaim seas with their methods, causing cracks to appear in the space, Suliang understood clearly in his heart. This is a battlefield that truly belongs to high latitudes. And the origin of the war partner in front of him is naturally very extraordinary. Taking a deep breath, Suliang slashed out his long sword, and in a flash, he rushed into the alliance of several war partners. For a while, the sword energy was flowing vertically and horizontally, and the sword intent soaring into the sky seemed to cut through the sky. Suliang was like a wolf among sheep, charging left and right in the battle, and he was unstoppable. Several rather magical war puppets were chopped to the ground by Suliang in just an instant, but strangely, they could not be destroyed. But it doesn't matter, the core of the war partner has disappeared and the battle is over. Yes, these battle partners did make Suliang feel a little bit troublesome. But it's just a little tricky. But just when Suliang thought it was over, there seemed to be an endless desire to live among the fighting partners. Immediately afterwards, those warriors who fell to the ground all stood up one by one, and as if nothing had happened, they started to kill Suliang again. Turns out to be an undead war partner that cannot be destroyed. So how do you get through this trial? Suliang frowned, but then relaxed. In his heart, he had already realized it. These war partners needed him to observe. What is the true meaning of immortality? How can immortality be guaranteed? To understand this, Suliang needs to observe the core flowing in the body of the war partner and understand the truth about the war partner's continuous repair. I see. With this thought, Suliang had a clear idea, and his attack became a bit sharper. My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Womang. Chapter 454. Moment. The core of the war partner was continuously killed and then reborn. Sul Yang, on the other hand, observed all of this carefully, recorded all his insights, and gradually understood the true meaning of the immortality realm. Finally, at some point, Sul Yang's body suddenly shone with light. The wounds that were accidentally struck on his body healed instantly. The vitality in his body continued to grow and could not be extinguished. It turns out that this is immortality. Sul Yang thought silently, already understanding the reason. Then, the war partners in front of me all collapsed and turned into dust at this moment. But then, before Sul Yang could be happy with his harvest, everything in front of him began to be gradually swallowed up by darkness and disappeared. The earth beneath his feet disappeared, and instead, it was like a sea, shimmering with psychedelic light, surrounding Sul Yang. This moment, the ancient ruins disappeared, replaced by the strange phantom sea. Of course, Sul Yang at this moment naturally didn't know the key. The scene suddenly changed, but Sul Yang did not panic, but quickly calmed down. Just when Sul Yang was planning to explore this place, but he suddenly found that his eyes suddenly went dark. A void swallowed up his sight, and Sul Yang found that he couldn't see anything. And immediately after, the ears cannot hear. The mouth cannot speak. The nose cannot smell. Even the physical sensation has completely disappeared. A short moment. Sul Yang was deprived of his five senses. At this moment, absolute nothingness enveloped Sul Yang. That feeling of silence and nothingness can drive people crazy. Even the concept of time and space, at this moment, disappeared into nothingness and can never be found again. Calm down. Sul Yang reminded himself over and over again in his heart. However, this kind of absolute nothingness is not something that human beings can fight against. Volume 1 Chapter 430, The Dead River of Time and Space, Qin Benjiao's Cultivation. Unconsciously, Sul Yang felt that his consciousness was gradually blurring. He is already gradually lost here, turning into a walking zombie-like existence. At this critical moment, the insights he had gained over many lifetimes suddenly came to Sul Yang's mind. The young human emperor, with his double eyes and supernatural power, should be able to suppress him for the rest of his life. A young swordsman has been raising his sword for several years. When the sword comes out, he will kill all the immortals in the sky. A domineering king, unparalleled in the world, capable of destroying thousands of armies with one sword. The Tao is natural, and the young man does nothing, but it integrates the heaven and the earth. If you read it, the law will follow. As those scenes appeared in front of my eyes, little by little insights emerged in my mind. Gradually, they began to be integrated, regardless of each other, and became the most fundamental part of Sul Yang. The shocking aura gradually emerged in Sul Yang, and in the realm of absolute nothingness, Sul Yang completed his own sublimation. Click. Sounds of breaking shackles emerged. Under this sublimation, the fourth level of Emperor Luo's heavy pupils actually broke through the wind. Aha! Sul Yang suddenly opened his eyes, and two rays of light emerged from Sul Yang's eyes, seeming to exhaust the blue water and make even the heaven and earth tremble. Absolute nothingness. Sul Yang murmured softly, "It's just a lie, broken. Drink lightly." All illusions are shattered before the eyes, light returns, and the five senses return to their proper place. What appeared in front of Sul Yang? But the scene in the realm of Taixu and Kongming, the ancient ruins, and the phantom sea have all disappeared. Are you back? Sul Yang looked at the scenery in front of him and murmured softly, a trace of vicissitudes of life flashed in his eyes. In that absolute nothingness, even though the time was short, to Sul Yang, it seemed endless. At this moment. But the female monarch suddenly appeared in front of Sul Yang, and nodded, in such a short period of time, You were able to understand the true meaning of immortality and break through the illusion of the ethereal sea of emptiness. You are very good. Thank you, Senior. Suliang bowed modestly. Available immediately. Then I heard the female monarch say, I intend to give you some rewards. The words just fell. The female monarch suddenly stretched out her hand, hugged Suliang, and pressed his head in front of her peak. Moment. That extraordinary softness hit his face. This time, Suliang really felt like he couldn't breathe. Senior, is this your reward? Suliang said in disbelief. Where can I find rewards that make my chest tight? Nature. The female monarch nodded. Very naturally, this method was taught to me by an old friend from before. What old friend is so deceitful? Suliang was speechless. Really are. Beautifully done. After a long time passed, Suliang and Nujun still stood in the same place, not separated. An atmosphere of silence rose between the two of them. Suliang also felt a little confused. Although it was a reward, was it too long? Although the feeling of facial cleanser is very overwhelming, but you still don't let go, is it really unnecessary? Suliang felt that he was almost suffocating. Senior. Suliang said dully, it should be, okay. As he spoke, the warm breath fell on the female monarch. However, in this regard, the female monarch still looked indifferent and stiff, as if she didn't feel anything. But, after hearing Suliang's words, the female queen let go of Suliang and took a step back. Call. Suliang breathed a sigh of relief. But he didn't know if it had been too long, but Suliang still felt that there was a faint milky fragrance lingering on the tip of his nose. Refreshing. At this moment, the female monarch spoke indifferently. Now that you have understood the true meaning of immortality, you already know what detachment is. Now, as long as you practice steadily, you can quickly step into the ranks of detachment. After hearing this, Suliang bowed respectfully. Thank you, Senior, for your guidance. At this moment, Suliang was still very grateful to Nujun. Even though he and Nujun didn't know each other at all, Nujun still came to teach him how to practice twice. This second time, Suliang was thrown directly into the ancient ruins and got a great opportunity. This friendship is really too heavy. Suliang is not the kind of person who doesn't repay kindness, but now, he really doesn't have anything good to repay. Then, after thinking for a while, Suliang tentatively said, if Senior is not in a hurry, how about I cook a meal for Senior, as a way of expressing my feelings, right? It doesn't have to be this way. The female monarch shook her head and refused coldly. Senior, don't be too busy to refuse. This can be regarded as a little bit of my wishes from this junior. Suliang quickly added, after all, the senior has done me such a great favor. The junior's cultivation is still latent and his wealth is insufficient, so he cannot give the senior a satisfactory treasure. But at least, this meal can be regarded as the junior's wish. However, facing Suliang's request, the female monarch still shook her head, with a cold and determined attitude. I teach you because there is kindness in it, and you don't need to repay anything. And this seat is not suitable for you. Yes, the peerless queen, whose cultivation is profound and unpredictable, and whose merits are closely related to nature, does not need to have a good meal. Although it's not impossible to do it right, since it's not necessary, there's no need to go to that trouble. How about no repayment, just a request from this junior? Suliang still refused to give up and made his last effort. This junior only has this much to offer. Senior, please don't refuse any more. My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Womang. Chapter 455. In that case. The female monarch lowered her eyelids and seemed to hesitate for a moment, then nodded, okay. ASAP. Senior, don't worry. Suliang nodded and quickly turned back to work. After a lot of busy work with the ingredients, steaming, frying and stir-frying, with Suliang's current strength, he was able to prepare a table full of sumptuous food in just a moment. After putting all the food on the table, Suliang served the wine. He didn't sit at the table, but just stayed with him and said confidently, "Senior, please have a taste." The female monarch looked at the things on the table. They were all beautiful, delicious, and arranged like works of art. They all exuded a fragrant aroma that made people move their index fingers. Especially some of them, even she had never seen them before, they were quite novel. But smelling the sweet smell on it, I think it is also an extremely delicious snack. Don't know why. It had been a long time since I had eaten, and I felt that I no longer needed to eat. No food could impress my wife. At this moment, I had some thoughts about eating. Since she agreed, the lady had no hesitation. Picking up the chopsticks placed aside, Nujun picked up a chopstick at random and stuffed it into her mouth. Next moment. But his eyes suddenly widened. The pretty face that had always been indifferent showed a trace of expression for the first time, and there was a vague emotion of surprise and joy. How could it be so delicious? When the food enters your mouth, it is crispy and sweet, and the rich fragrance instantly activates your taste buds, making the ladies who no longer need to obtain energy from food feel a little hungry. Want to eat? These two thoughts have been lingering in the female monarch's absolutely rational and indifferent mind. This moment, Suliang's cooking skills completely amazed Sister San Wu. Then, as if unconsciously, the lady's chopsticks reached towards the food on the table. 1 bite, 2 bites. Although still elegant, the speed is getting faster and faster. A table full of delicious food disappeared in an instant. Click. The sound of chopsticks touching a smooth, clean plate woke the lady up. "I've finished eating?" The female monarch was stunned for a moment, and then, a hint of crimson appeared on her usually indifferent and beautiful face. Immediately afterwards, his eyes were slightly lowered, seeming to dodge a little, and his red lips pursed slightly, as if he didn't know what to say. For the first time since she appeared in front of Suliang, she showed her embarrassment. At this moment, she finally gained some popularity, and her beautiful face looked much more delicate. But she was completely different from the previous one. "See this?" Suliang didn't reveal anything, he just asked, "Senior, do you need some more?" "Junior, if you do it now, it's still too late." "No, no need." The female king did not look at Suliang, but just shook her head, and her voice seemed to still contain the feeling of embarrassment. Standing up, Nujun was about to leave without looking back, and said in an erratic voice, "It tastes very good. Thank you for the compliment, Senior." Suliang saluted respectfully, "If Senior likes me, that's the best thing." To this, the female monarch just nodded and left. In an instant, she disappeared. Looking at the direction where the female monarch disappeared, Suliang sighed after a moment. "I sent away a senior, but what should I do at home? He disappeared suddenly and it took such a long time. My ladies didn't know how anxious they would be. Forget it, let's bring some gifts. With gifts, it's always easier to coax." Suliang finally returned with rich gifts. "Suliang!" Qin Benjao exclaimed and immediately rushed forward, hugging Suliang without letting go, and asked curiously, "Where did you go just now? Why can't we find you no matter how hard we look?" "It's just practice." Suliang smiled awkwardly. Because the queen wanted to keep it a secret, Suliang didn't say anything. "Sister and master, are they all here?" "How could it be here?" Qin Benjao pouted, a little dissatisfied. "You disappeared suddenly and didn't tell anyone, so you felt relaxed and at ease. But as for us, do you know that we are very worried? They all went out to look for you and haven't come back yet. Just wait. I'll contact Master and ask them to come back. Say it. Qin Benjao ignored Suliang and turned around to leave. See this. Suliang smiled bitterly. It seems that my ladies are not easy to coax this time. Suliang's cultivation strength has always been great, which is very reassuring. In normal times, even if Suliang suddenly disappeared, the girls would be worried, but they would not be too impatient. After all, even if a transcendent and powerful man came in person, it would never be possible for him to take Suliang away without any movement. But now, after all, we are in the Holy Land, and the situation is a little complicated. Therefore, Wan Qing and others are still a little impatient to stay in the sun. Therefore, when receiving the notice from Qin Benjao, the girls rushed back without much hesitation. Seeing Suliang being scolded by Qin Benjao with a flattering smile, Wan Qing and others immediately gathered around him. Liang, where have you been? Humph, you disappeared without even saying a word. Do you know how worried we are about you? Sisters, please ignore him. He disappears for no reason. It seems that he has some secrets that he doesn't want to tell us. Hearing this, Suliang quickly explained, how is it possible? How could I keep a secret from you? Not always. Tan Kinja snorted softly and sniffed Suliang's body, and then she became suspicious first. Liang, could it be that you were abducted by a beautiful big sister? As soon as these words came out, Suliang was speechless. It's really, my sister's guess was really accurate. The senior who taught me how to practice, although I don't know her identity, is indeed my eldest sister. Well, a big sister in every sense of the word. Seeing Suliang's speechless look, Tan Kinja glared at Suliang. Why, did you really make me guess right? How can it be? Suliang quickly rejected it, joking that his inexplicable disappearance was enough to worry his girlfriends. If the news that he was taken away by his eldest sister really leaked out, all the ladies in his family would be proud of themselves. I can't say it, it's too scary. Then, Suliang quickly changed the subject and took out a bunch of gifts he had brought back. How could I do that kind of thing? Look, I brought you so many gifts. These things are enough to prove your good intentions, right? However, Qin Benjao and others didn't even accept the gifts. They just stared at Suliang. Can you get rid of us with just a few gifts? You have to apologize, you know. I know, I was wrong, I was really wrong, I have no say in how you ladies want to punish you. Suliang immediately spoke righteously and made his attitude clear. Hear this. Qin Benjao and others looked at each other and nodded. Immediately. Then Qin Benjao said, this punishment is quite simple. Suliang, go to the room by yourself. You know the rest. All of us, you have to serve us well today. Hiss. Suliang immediately took a breath of air. Looking at the women who gradually gathered around him and their bright smiling faces, he felt bad all over. Stop it, this kind of punishment will kill people. After a long time, Qin Benjao sat under the sun, squinting at the sun, feeling quite satisfied. Turning back and listening to the commotion behind her, Qin Benjao smiled, quite sinisterly. Humph, let's see, Suliang, do you still dare to disappear casually in the future? And just then, Qin Benjao suddenly felt that the space in front of her was in chaos, as if something was trying to tear the space apart from the other side. Among them, Qin Benjao also felt a mysterious but familiar atmosphere. Moment. Qin Benjao stood up and waited aside. She is very familiar with the owner of this aura. Next moment. Sure enough, the space was torn open, and a beautiful figure stepped out of it. Look at that long white hair and that lonely, cold temperament. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Womang. Chapter 456. This person is the Lord of Yinghuo. It was also Qin Benjiao's mysterious teacher who taught her the power of time and space that no one knew about. Seeing the Lord of Yinghuo appear, Qin Benjiao happily greeted him. "Why are you here?" "Because of you." The Lord of Yinghuo's voice was cold and ethereal, and his words were concise and concise. "How have you mastered what I taught you before?" After thinking about it, Qin Benjiao said modestly, "It's okay." "Hear this." The Lord of Yinghuo nodded slightly. But then, he suddenly took action. All of a sudden, the space in front of her was distorted, and a powerful splitting force erupted. Time has also undergone indescribable changes, causing everything around it to slow down. However, although her attack was sudden, the strength she showed was still within the range that Qin Benjiao could handle. Obviously, it was to test Qin Benjiao's cultivation. "See this." Qin Benjiao was not afraid, and immediately showed the power of time and space that he understood and mastered. Just for a moment. Then all the methods of the Lord of Yinghuo were resolved and eliminated invisible. Withdrawing his hand, the Lord of Yinghuo nodded. "Well, it seems that you have mastered what I taught you pretty well." So. Qin Benjiao smiled, very humble. But then, she listened to the Lord of Yinghuo put forward his request. "In this case, you should proceed to the next stage of practice." Hearing this, Qin Benjiao immediately became excited. Okay. Seeing her husband's cultivation strength getting stronger and stronger, Qin Benjiao was naturally a little anxious. Although you are not comparing yourself to your own husband, at the very least, you cannot be left behind by your own husband, right? Immediately. Qin Benjiao immediately walked back. "Wait a moment, I'll tell Sulang first so that they don't worry about me." "Don't worry, I won't tell you." Then, he curiously asked, "Where are we going to practice? Is it the same place as before?" "No need to tell them." However, the Lord of Yinghuo built a space barrier to block Qin Benjiao's path. He shook his head and said, "Your next stage of training must go to the dead river of time and space. For this reason, you have to leave for a while." Come to think of it, you don't have any reason to convince them to let you leave for such a long time, right? The dead river of time and space. Qin Benjiao blinked, but was a little hesitant. "I don't care, but what will Sulang do if I leave? Even if I find a reason, if I'm not with him for such a long time, he will definitely miss me and worry about me." Qin Benjiao couldn't help but want to show a happy smile when she thought about her husband being worried and missing her way of not thinking about tea and rice. As for Qin Benjiao's concerns, Lord Yinghuo was not worried about anything. Shaking his head, the Lord of Yinghuo said with great confidence, "Don't worry, I have a solution for this matter." "Is that so?" Although Qin Benjiao didn't know what her method was, she still trusted the Lord of Yinghuo. Then, in order to better protect Lang Jun, Qin Benjiao agreed, "Okay, I promise you." But then he said, "But before I leave, I want to say goodbye to Mr. Lang and get close to him." Even the Lord of Yinghuo said that she needed to leave for a while, and Qin Benjiao understood that she still didn't know when she would be able to come back. Volume 1 Chapter 431, Just one night, what happened to my girlfriend? Therefore, before leaving, I must get close to my husband. As for what I lacked when I was away, well, just wait until you come back and let Lang Jun make up for it. Anyway, tonight, I will definitely not let Lang Jun go. Then, wait until night time. Qin Benjiao became uncharacteristically tough. When everyone had dinner and was about to rest, she got up and took Suliang back to her room. Seeing this scene, others also wanted to join in the fight. But everyone is gone, what else can be done? Just forget it. Anyway, it's not bad for this day. In the room. After the two of them walked in, Qin Benjio put her beautiful hand on Suliang's chest and pushed Suliang down on the bed. Immediately. Leaning down, Qin Benjio pressed on Suliang, her jade hands all the way down. See this? Suliang quickly stopped his girlfriend and laughed dryly. I think we can take a break before talking. God knows what happened to him after he came back today. Although Suliang felt that he had no problem, even 3 more Qin Benjio could handle it. But, you should take a holiday, right? However, facing Suliang's polite refusal, Qin Benjio glared, Humph, Suliang doesn't like me anymore. How is that possible? You girl, you always talk nonsense. Suliang responded quickly, fearing that if he didn't say anything right, his girlfriend would be angry. Otherwise, why would you reject me? Qin Benjio still pouted, feeling aggrieved, and about to cry. Suliang was speechless for a moment. In the end, he could only sigh, okay, you can do whatever you want. That's pretty much it? Qin Benjio hummed, leaned over and kissed her gently. After a long time. At this moment, it is already late at night. Qin Benjio pressed on Suliang, drawing circles on Suliang's chest with her slender jade fingers, with a hint of blush on her pretty face. Suliang. Raising her head and kissing Suliang's face, Qin Benjio's voice was a little unclear. If I have to leave for a while, will you miss me or worry about me? Of course. Suliang was startled, and immediately hugged his girlfriend, holding her down and preventing her from moving. He frowned, what do you mean by this? Are you leaving for something? Is it dangerous? Do you want me to come with you? Suliang believed that his girlfriend had the ability to take charge of her own business, but even so, if something happened to his girlfriend, Suliang still hoped that he could help. No, I'm just asking. Qin Benjio smiled sweetly, her eyes shining like starlight. Suliang, how could I be willing to leave you? Even if it's just for a day, I will miss you very much. While talking, Qin Benjio broke free from Suliang's shackles and started acting again. You. Suliang gently knocked on his girlfriend's head, but didn't say much. Qin Benjio chuckled and said no more. In this way, it can be regarded as saying goodbye to your husband, right? Early the next morning, Suliang opened his eyes drowsily and looked sideways, but was surprised that he didn't find his girlfriend. It's rare for this girl to be so diligent. Suliang shook his head and smiled. After getting up and packing, he came outside. Then, at a glance, he saw Qin Benjio standing outside. Morning. Suliang waved his hand and said hello. Well, morning. Qin Benjio nodded with a faint smile on her face. However, her attitude made Suliang feel that something was wrong. In the past, when my girlfriend saw me, she would jump directly into my arms. How? Don't you feel so enthusiastic today? Little did he know that his Benjio had actually already set off for the so-called dead river of time and space. The person in front of me is Qin Benjio disguised as the Lord of Yinghuo. This is what the Lord of Yinghuo said. I made something to eat for you, please eat it quickly. My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Womang. Chapter 457. The Lord of Yinghuo smiled faintly and pointed at the breakfast in front of him. Oh. Suliang nodded and glanced at the breakfast in front of him. Well, they were all what he liked. Without thinking too much, he sat up, took a bite, and gave a thumbs up. Yeah, very good. As long as you like it, I haven't done it for a long time. The Lord of Yinghuo smiled faintly. When she met Suliang's doubtful gaze, she realized that she had made a mistake, so she did not explain anything more. She just sat quietly aside and smiled lightly. After breakfast, when Lord Yinghuo went to pack his things, Suliang scratched his head and thought about something. He felt that after one night, something seemed wrong with his girlfriend. However, she is so familiar with everything about her, so she is obviously her girlfriend. The only difference from before was that Benjao's attitude towards herself was a little less enthusiastic than before. On the contrary, it feels more like a feeling of deep remembrance. How strange. It's only been one night, what happened to my girlfriend? By the afternoon. In the room. The Lord of Yinghuo put his legs together and sat sideways on the bed, calm and beautiful. And on her slender legs wrapped in white silk, there was Suliang. At this moment, the Lord of Yinghuo was giving Suliang a knee pillow and a massage to relax him. Suliang, is this intensity still appropriate? The jade hands gently rubbed both sides of Suliang's forehead, and the Lord of Yinghuo asked softly. Yeah, very good. Suliang nodded and suddenly said with a smile, your skills are getting better and better. Did you practice them secretly in private? For Suliang, of course I have to practice. The Lord of Yinghuo nodded and said. So that's it? Thank you for your hard work. Suliang patted the beautiful white silk legs in front of him and said with a smile, wait a moment, do you want me to give you a massage? What he didn't say was that he also felt that his girlfriend seemed to be more caring and considerate. The current knee pillow massage was first mentioned by my girlfriend. There was such a big change in one night. What happened to my girlfriend? After thinking seriously for a long time, Suliang suddenly shook his head and laughed. Who cares? She is my girlfriend anyway, I like whatever she becomes. No need, just relax Suliang. The Lord of Yinghuo shook his head and looked out the window. And just at this time. At dusk in the afternoon, the sun sets down in the west, and the setting sun is like fire, dyeing the earth red. In the room, the two occasionally communicated and looked at each other, smiling happily. It has a quiet and warm atmosphere. I haven't felt this kind of atmosphere for a long time. It's been so long that I almost forgot. The Lord of Yinghuo pursed his lips and looked around with eyes full of nostalgia. Nothing has changed. Very nice. Volume 1 Chapter 432 Simulation again, a dead end. After returning from the realm of Taixu and Kongming, Suliang found that his master seemed to be particularly silent. Normally, everyone in the Su family gathers together to chat, but when practicing, Wan Qing just sits aside in silence. I don't know what I'm thinking about. Not just during the day. Even at night, Wan Qing, who had always been domineering, had never monopolized Suliang again. Even. They rarely come to see Suliang. Tan Qinja and others were allowed to hug Suliang and show off their affection in front of Wan Qing, which was sweet, but Wan Qing was indifferent. He completely lost his usual jealous and domineering look. Tan Qinja and others may have noticed Wan Qing's change. But for them, this is simply awesome. Unexpectedly, Sister Wan Qing tried to steal our husband, and the time we spent with our husbands skyrocketed. Even if they compete with each other, in terms of time and opportunities, there are much more than before. So, no matter what happened to Sister Wan Qing, it is something that Lang Jun needs to consider. We just need to help. As for now, it's better to take this opportunity to get closer to Lang Jun. But Suliang is not like them. Late at night. As usual, after the girls dispersed, Wan Qing went directly back to her room. And tonight, it was Tan Qinja who won. Therefore, Tan Qinja stood up very naturally, came to Suliang's side, hugged Suliang's arm, and planned to go back to the house and taste the fruits of her victory. But I didn't expect it. Suliang shook his head, sister, please go back and rest first. I'll go see master. Hearing this, Tan Qinja felt a little disappointed. After all, he was the husband he had finally snatched, so it would be a pity to let him go like this. However, after all, it was related to his aunt. Tan Kinja also saw her recent situation, and she was somewhat worried in her heart. Then Tan Kinja stopped entangled. Approaching Suliang's ear, Tan Kinja murmured in her voice, exhaling like a orchid, "If you still have time tonight, Ailiang must come to me." "Of course, sister, don't worry." Suliang smiled and walked straight to the door of Wanqing's room. Without knocking, Suliang pushed the door straight in. Sure enough, at a glance, he saw Wanqing sitting on the bed, thinking blankly. "Good disciple? Why are you here?" Wanqing was startled and asked with some doubts. "Master has been unusually silent recently, how could I ignore him?" Suliang shook his head with a smile and sat directly next to Wanqing, holding Wanqing's soft and boneless white catkin in his hand. "Did Master encounter any troubles? Although I may not be able to help you much, it would be good for Master to just talk to me. Am I being so obvious?" Wanqing was stunned for a moment, then she felt a little warm in her heart and smiled, "It's not a big deal." But then, the conversation changed and his face became serious. "I just plan to take back my power." "Master, are you ready to think about it?" Suliang immediately frowned, his expression solemn. "The close friend of my master is the supreme elder of the Holy Land and is highly respected. Equals. His cultivation is also top-notch in the world, with few rivals. If Master wants to get his power back, he must take action against this person. But fighting against such a person, not to mention her own incomparable strength, is simply difficult to match. Her status as the supreme elder of the Holy Land cannot be ignored. Who knows how the Holy Land will react? It is conceivable that if this matter is to be successful, there must be many obstacles." For a while, Suliang only felt that this Holy Land was actually turbulent and rainy was about to come. A great sense of oppression and urgency enveloped his heart. Without waiting for the master's reply, Suliang expressed his worries. Finally, Suliang asked, "Master, are you ready and have you got a complete plan?" Facing the worries of his good disciple, Wanqing just smiled softly, pinched Suliang's face, and said comfortingly, "Don't worry, my master will not do anything that is uncertain. I have my own way to deal with what you said. Everything is no problem." Being able to say this, Wanqing is obviously full of confidence. Immediately, when Suliang just breathed a sigh of relief. However, Wanqing suddenly came up and leaned close to his ear. "If tonight, with the support of my apprentice, I might be more confident as a teacher." Ahem. Suliang coughed lightly, slowly held Wanqing's waist, and said seriously, "For the sake of Master, my disciple will not hesitate to die." "Say it." With a little force, Wanqing was pushed down on the bed. Immediately, Suliang kissed her lightly and said with a smile, "This time, Master doesn't need to work too hard." After a long time, Suliang was lying on the bed, holding the master who was coming again in his arms, feeling a little melancholy. "Master likes me so much, so I really should start. My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator." Author, Fangzone Womang. Chapter 458. "However, I really can't fulfill my promise to my sister tonight." Early the next morning, Wanqing went straight out of the house and went to look for her best friend. Suliang, on the other hand, was sitting in the yard, feeling a little uneasy. "Frankly speaking, my master's thoughts and actions." Even if he still believed in his master, he would still be a little worried when facing a top powerhouse like the Elder of the Holy Land. And just then, it is detected that the host has doubts, and the system can provide you with simulation services to help you solve problems. A new optional simulation route appears. Please host to choose whether to simulate. The sound of the system sounded in Suliang's ears, making Suliang silent. The dog system, which had been silent for so long, actually came online at this time. After so many simulated services, Suliang finally discovered it. Every time the system proactively provides simulation, it is an absolute crisis. So, for Master, enable simulation. Suliang said without hesitation. Simulation begins. Wan Qing went to the Holy Land to get back the power she had stripped away. When she was rejected, her best friend turned against her and planned to keep it for herself. Wan Qing felt that she had her own way and the advantage was mine, so she boldly took action, but it was useless. Instead, she was plotted by her best friend. The sound of the system disappeared, and Suliang immediately frowned. This time, it turned out to be a simulation carried out on behalf of the Master. Moreover, this is actually an inevitable outcome. Master is in danger. What is the key to breaking the situation? Suliang frowned and thought carefully, but Suliang, who knew nothing about the inside story, really had no clue. At this moment, the system's voice appeared again. The system can provide the host with a way to break the situation. Please complete the task. Immediately. Then a task request appeared in front of Suliang. The dog system is indeed a dog system. There were no tasks during the previous simulation, but now the way to break the situation is actually chargeable. Sure enough, if you want to get help from the dog system, you have to pay a price. I took a closer look at the special request task called Cao Thief. The target of this task was actually directed at the big sister who helped me practice before. But what makes Suliang helpless is that this is a condition that he cannot consider at all. For the sake of Master, even if you don't agree, it won't work. Okay, I agree. Suliang said helplessly. The moment Suliang agreed, the system provides a solution. The host can stimulate the Qing Emperor's aura, which can strengthen the resonance of Wan Qing and the peeling power. The Qing Emperor Eternal Life Cauldron in the host's hands can even be used as a recycling container. Hearing this, Suliang was suddenly enlightened. Indeed, Wan Qing was the disciple of Suliang's Qing Emperor in his previous life. All the skills were taught by the Master. Being with the Master all the time, it is natural to be tainted with the aura of the Master. Just like the last time Wan Qing sensed her own power and wanted to take it back, she needed to borrow the Qing Emperor's aura from Suliang's body. The Qing Emperor's breath can strengthen the resonance of Wan Qing and power, making it easier to collect it back. Perhaps the best friend of my master had not considered this. Since the method already exists. Suliang immediately got up and set out to find the master. Master's trip is dangerous and there is no doubt that he will fail, so Suliang naturally does not dare to neglect it. Fortunately, through the simulation just now, Suliang already knew the master's location and went directly there, which saved a lot of waste in searching. At the same time, Wan Qing and the Supreme Elder, who were already facing each other in the Holy Mountain, were at war with each other at this moment. The two of them were speechless, extremely silent. For a moment, they didn't even know what to say. After a long time, the Supreme Elder asked, Wan Qing, I've known for a long time that this day would come. I've known for a long time that you would come to take back your power. However, as a friend for thousands of years, I ask you to give up taking back your power. This power is too useful for me. What do you want to use it for? Wan Qing frowned and asked curiously. People who cultivate immortality only want to ascend to the world and seek immortality. The Supreme Elder said matter-of-factly, with my current cultivation level and your strength, I can do it. So, I hope you can help me. I would pay any price for this. Hear this. Wan Qing's pretty face immediately turned cold. I see, the temptation of immortality is so great that it makes you forget our 1,000-year friendship and try to snatch something that doesn't belong to you. It seems that time can really change a person. Shaking her head and sighing, Wan Qing immediately put aside these old feelings and said coldly, stop talking nonsense and give me my power back. Don't force me to fight with you. As soon as the statement came out, the road to negotiation was immediately blocked. Wan Qing, I have given you enough face. The Supreme Elder immediately turned his face, with a ferocious look on his face. Do you really think I can't control you? You can give it a try. Wan Qing was not afraid at all. She put on her posture, gathered her majestic true energy, and was ready to take action at any time. Okay, since you don't care about the 1,000-year friendship, then why should I be polite to you? The Supreme Elder laughed twice, no longer caring about friendship, and actually took action directly. And this move is all out. The turbulent impact surged towards Wan Qing, with the power that could truly move mountains and fill seas, and in an instant, Wan Qing was swept inside. If it hadn't been for them, they would have left the city at this moment and were deep in the mountains. I'm afraid that just this confrontation can affect countless people. Facing the Supreme Elder's all-out attack, Wan Qing remained undaunted, calmly dealt with it, and neutralized his moves one by one. Just for a moment. The two of them passed hundreds of moves, but there was no winner. Separated again. The Supreme Elder stared at Wan Qing fiercely and accused, Wan Qing, what's wrong with me pursuing immortality? Who wouldn't long for immortality? Even if it's you, you can never be exempt from vulgarity. Then why do you want to stop me like this? It is indeed right to pursue immortality, but you are the one who is wrong. Wan Qing shook her head, indifferently. It is an evil way to use other people's power to rob other people's things and help yourself achieve immortality. Even though everyone in the world desires immortality, it is wrong to do anything to achieve immortality. You don't need to tell me how to do it. As if a sore spot had been poked, the Supreme Elder became furious and hit him again. In an instant. The two fought again for several rounds, but still couldn't decide the outcome. However, at this time, the part of power belonging to Wan Qing in the Supreme Elder's body was ready to move. Perhaps he felt Wan Qing's power and revived again. Just calm down. The Supreme Elder shouted angrily, suppressing his strength with all his strength, and then raised his head to look at Wan Qing. Don't know why. Wan Qing actually saw extreme greed and desire in the eyes of her former best friend. I didn't expect that your power would show signs of losing control just by showing up. The Supreme Elder smiled cruelly. It seems that as long as you are still alive, it will be difficult for me to completely refine this power. In this case, you have no choice but to die. However, my dear friend, after you die, I will refine you with this power. In this way, it can help me achieve further detachment. What do you think? Hearing this, Wan Qing frowned tightly and said in disbelief, are you crazy? The means of refining people are not even used by those who are demonic. How dare you, the Supreme Elder of the Holy Land, do this? So what? The Supreme Elder didn't care at all. As long as I can achieve transcendence and achieve true immortality, I don't care about the rest. Sure enough, it's crazy. Wan Qing sighed, feeling extremely disappointed. In fact, she still has the final trump card in her hand that can take her power back. The reason why he didn't use it for a long time was to give his best friend a chance. After all, after 1,000 years of friendship, how could Wan Qing not care? However, I didn't expect that not only did she not repent, but she even worsened her situation and tried to refine herself. The last hope for you in Wan Qing's heart also disappeared. She was certain. This best friend of mine is already possessed by a demon. In order to achieve further detachment and achieve immortality, become a demon? How ridiculous. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Womeng. Chapter 459. At this time. The Supreme Elder has already taken action brazenly, using cruel and deadly moves in order to kill Wan Qing. And in battle, Wan Qing was calm, not panicking at all. Volume 1 Chapter 433 The Speed of Life and Death, Wan Qing in peak condition. While resisting the Supreme Elder's tactics, Wan Qing said calmly, "What a pity, what can you do if you have exhausted all your abilities? You should know that your own power can only be controlled by yourself. So, give me my power back. Say it." Wan Qing retreated suddenly, holding the magic formula with her hands and muttering something in her mouth. Moment. The power that had been suppressed in the Taizhang Elder's body actually began to echo Wan Qing, causing chaos and rampage. Seeing it, it was almost impossible to suppress it. But at this moment, a strange smile suddenly appeared on the corner of the Supreme Elder's mouth. Immediately, I saw her palm gently waved forward. Wan Qing's connection with her own power was suddenly severed. And the mobilized power also calmed down again. Seeing this, Wan Qing frowned immediately. That power was originally her own, and this technique was set up by herself, so there was absolutely no way she could make a mistake. If so, why did it fail? Why didn't the power come back? This scene was truly something Wan Qing had not expected. Looking at Wan Qing's confused and solemn expression, the Supreme Elder laughed twice, very happily. "Wan Qing, is it strange that your method has no effect?" As soon as these words came out, Wan Qing had some guesses in her mind. "Is it because of you? Oh, after 1,000 years, how could I not know that you had tampered with this power?" The Supreme Elder smiled coldly. "Do you think that since I know what you did, how could I let it continue to exist? Give me 1,000 years to study, and I have already found a solution to the problem. What you think is your trump card is actually no secret to me. Say it." The Taizhang Elder's laughter gradually became louder and more rampant. "Wan Qing, let's capture him without mercy. If you still remember our 1,000-year friendship, then you will no longer resist and let me refine and devour you, and make me perfect, okay?" Delusion. Wan Qing gave a soft drink, but her heart gradually sank. Oops. His last trump card has been cracked, and after all, his former best friend has been practicing for a long time and is much better than him. Wan Qing indeed brought all the memories and insights from her previous life with her, and she practiced very quickly under the high roof. But after all, the growth of cultivation requires time. Her time was too little. Compared with this Supreme Elder, Wan Qing is really too young at this moment. Since you don't cooperate, then don't blame me for not being friendly. Say it. The Supreme Elder used all his strength to move every move, all carrying the ability to fill mountains and move seas. They were extremely powerful and continuous. Facing this kind of offensive, even Wan Qing found it difficult to cope with it. No way. Wan Qing's realm may still be there, but his cultivation is too far behind, and his realm is simply not enough to make up for this cultivation. Watching, Wan Qing was gradually suppressed by the Supreme Elder bit by bit. The situation has reached its most critical moment. And just then, "Master!" a shout rang out, immediately attracting the attention of Wan Qing and Taizhang Elder. The two of them turned to look, and were shocked to see that it was Sul Yang, coming from a distance. However, at this moment, Sul Yang was filled with aura. On it, the majestic aura was like an abyss or a prison, with an ancient and mysterious feeling, as if it was eternal, giving Wan Qing and the Supreme Elder a familiar feeling. "Qing, Qing Emperor." The Supreme Elder spoke in disbelief. His voice was high-pitched, as if his throat had been strangled, which was enough to show her shock. Looking at Sul Yang at this moment, indeed, the aura on his body and his calm and cold temperament were like the reappearance of the Qing Emperor. How is it possible? Didn't Qing Emperor already? The Supreme Elder shouted in disbelief, but at the end of his words, he had some scruples and immediately shut his mouth. He unconsciously took 2 steps back. The Supreme Elder no longer cared about strength or wonking. His expression was horrified and uneasy. Please listen to my explanation. To this, Suliang didn't say anything, he just made a magic formula with his hands. Immediately, the Qing Emperor's aura on his body suddenly condensed, then turned into a thin line, which went straight into the Supreme Elder's body and connected with Wan Qing's power. Bring it to you. With a soft drink, Suliang stretched out his hand. When the Qing Emperor Eternal Life Cauldron appeared behind him, the power was also stripped out and recovered by Suliang. Master, pick it up. Suliang said to Wan Qing in a deep voice, and patted the Qing Emperor Eternal Life Cauldron with his palm. Next moment, the Qingdi Eternal Life Cauldron flew towards Wan Qing's direction with its incomparable power. Looking at it like this, it is obvious that he is going to be sent back to Wan Qing's body. See this. The Supreme Elder couldn't care less about the Qing Emperor and shouted, "No!" immediately. Then he rushed forward, trying to stop and block him. See this. Suliang used all kinds of methods as if they were free of charge. He didn't expect to hurt the enemy, but just wanted to delay it for a while. This moment. To go, to chase, to stop, it's like the speed of life and death, thrilling. However, under the obstruction of Suliang and the protection of the Qing Emperor Eternal Life Cauldron. After all, the power returned to Wan Qing's body 1 step ahead of the Supreme Elder. Moment. Boom. A powerful, majestic, yet powerful aura with ancient vicissitudes suddenly erupted from Wan Qing's body and swept through the 8 wastelands. Even the Supreme Elder, who had previously seemed invincible, was blown away at this moment. The momentum surged for a moment and then was withdrawn. Wan Qing stood in mid-air, looking at her former best friend with indifferent eyes, full of confidence. After all, it is his own strength. Just the moment he returns, they have been successfully integrated, regardless of each other, just like an arm. At this moment, Wan Qing is in her prime. It's time for all this to end. Wan Qing's voice was calm and soft, but it sounded like a bell in the ears of the Supreme Elder. Humph, it's just a fusion of power. The Supreme Elder had a sullen face. It doesn't matter, since you have taken back your power, then I will refine all this power with you. Say it. The Supreme Elder immediately rushed forward. However, Wan Qing slapped him casually and knocked him to the ground. At this moment, Wan Qing is invincible, overwhelming the world, and has few rivals. The next battle was a crushing situation. Faced with her so-called best friend who had previously been bent on refining herself, Wan Qing naturally would not hold back. In just a moment, she beat the Supreme Elder until he vomited blood, his breath was weak, and he could not get up again. Already on the verge of death. Arriving next to the Supreme Elder, Wan Qing looked down and asked calmly, "What else do you have to say?" Volume 1 Chapter 434 Without you, what is the use of immortality? Oh, God is unfair. The Supreme Elder sighed with emotion. The difference in talent is like clouds and mud. I have been cultivating diligently for thousands of years, and I dare not slack off at all, but in the end, I lost to you who barely practiced well. Oh, this world is a little too boring. Wan Qing just pursed her lips, her eyes flickered, and said nothing. Wait until the aura of the Supreme Elder disappears completely. Only then did she relax. Immediately afterwards, she felt all kinds of complex emotions welling up in her heart, making her mind quite confused. My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens. Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Womang. Chapter 460. After all, we have been close friends for thousands of years, how could it be so easy to let go? Turned. Wan Qing hugged the master beside her and buried her head on his shoulder. Before moving, there was a rare feeling of attachment. "Master, are you okay?" Suliang subconsciously hugged his master tightly and asked with concern. Wanqing shook her head and said nothing. "This time, it's really all thanks to Master. I was still a little overconfident, and in the end, I actually needed Master to help me out. But luckily there's you. Although the Supreme Elder has betrayed. But for Wanqing, this is a 1,000-year friendship after all. His best friend for thousands of years wanted to refine him, but he killed his best friend with his own hands. This really made Wanqing feel a little complicated. There is sadness and regret, but it is difficult to let go of this matter soon. Then, after taking back his own power, he followed Suliang back to where he lived. Wanqing entered the room alone. During the whole process, she did not talk to Tan Qinja and others who came to inquire about the situation. Ailiang, and, this is. Tan Qinja looked at Suliang in confusion and asked. Although the battle just now was extremely far away, the fluctuations in energy may have been too great. Those who are not strong enough may not feel anything. But for everyone in the Su family who is already considered a master in cultivation and is also very familiar with Wanqing's aura. Wanqing's aura fluctuated like a bright light in the darkness, dazzling and impossible to ignore. Therefore, naturally they were a little worried. It's hard to describe in words. Suliang shook his head. His best friend for thousands of years wanted to attack his master because he lived forever? Suliang really didn't know how to say this. Showing a smile, Suliang said to Tan Qinja and others, "Don't worry, I'll just go see master." Hearing this, Tan Qinja and others all nodded and felt a little more relaxed. At this point, the only person who can accompany Wanqing and unravel Wanqing's emotions is Suliang. Even Tan Qinja was a little confused. Saying goodbye to his wives, Suliang came to Wanqing's room and opened the door directly. In the room, Wanqing sat at the table, staring at the blank tabletop, lost in thought. See Suliang coming in. Wanqing came back to her senses and forced a smile. "My dear disciple, why are you?" Suliang smiled gently, sat next to Wanqing, and held Wanqing's hand. "Master, are you feeling sad?" Hear this. Wanqing was startled, but shook her head. "It's not that sad. Since she wants to attack me, I won't sit still and wait for death. I have already prepared for today's events. I just feel that, time has changed. It turns out that such a deep friendship can't compare to the wear and tear of time and the temptation of immortality. Longevity is the pursuit of immortality cultivators in the world." Suliang smiled and shook his head. "If there is a chance, who can seize it? That feeling of being one step away from the world can really drive people crazy. Master, it's better not to take it too seriously." Nodding her head gently, Wanqing suddenly asked, "My dear disciple, will you be like this one day?" Ahem. Suliang was immediately choked by his master's words. "What nonsense are you talking about, master? For me, the so-called immortality is really not as important as you. If I don't have you, it would be better to go back than live forever." Listen to Suliang's words. Wanqing lowered her head slightly, her eyes flickering, but her heart was filled with emotion. "You don't care about immortality for us, and we like you like this." Pursing her red lips, Wanqing suddenly grabbed Suliang's arm and smiled sweetly. "My good disciple, shall we watch the sunset together? Now?" Suliang was stunned for a moment and looked at the sunshine outside. "Isn't it a bit early now?" "It's better to be earlier, so what's the harm?" Wanqing chuckled, and then her figure swayed. Suliang only felt that the scenery in front of him flickered. Immediately, when it became clear again, he was already in the holy mountain outside the Holy Land. On a towering mountain, Wanqing took Suliang's hand and led her master to sit on a stone. Immediately, nestling in Suliang's arms, holding him tightly with her arms, Wan Qing's delicate face was full of peaceful happiness. As I said, it's still a little early to watch the sunset. Suliang hugged his master tightly with his backhand, shook his head and laughed. It's okay anyway, just wait here. Wan Qing smiled so hard that her eyes narrowed, obviously very happy. Okay, master, you have the final say. Suliang didn't refute anything, enjoying this rare leisure time. Then, on this mountain peak, the two of them have been cuddling together like this, chatting and laughing, waiting for the sunset. This behavior may seem a bit silly, but it is extremely heartwarming. After a long time, the setting sun was setting in the west, and the setting sun was like fire, dyeing half of the sky red. Wan Qing tightened her arms around Suliang, her eyes gradually becoming infatuated. It's so beautiful. Yes, so beautiful. Suliang nodded and hugged his master tightly. The rising and setting of the sun, the wilderness and the mountains and forests, can be the meaning of life. If you blindly pursue immortality, even if you get it, it won't be as happy as watching the sunset together right now. While talking, Suliang turned his head and looked at Wan Qing's side face in his arms. In his mind, a series of incomplete images flashed through his mind. The girl hugged the master, rubbed her little head in the master's arms, and said coquettishly, "Master, master, let's watch the sunset together." "Nonsense, it's only afternoon, where did the sunset come from? We're fine anyway, let's go together." Well, it's just this once, it won't happen next time." On the same mountain peak, the girl hugged her master and looked at the sunset with her eyes. "Wow, master, it looks good." "Indeed." "Hey, let's come back tomorrow, shall we?" This moment is just like that moment. And at the same time, Wan Qing hugged Suliang tightly, and the same picture flashed through her mind. Actually, with her past cultivation and innate understanding, if she could cultivate to this point, she might actually be able to attain immortality, but not necessarily. But, so what? It is really interesting to have you by your side on the road to eternal life. If it weren't for you, what would be the use of my eternal life? It is better to go back, enter reincarnation, and then look for your traces. For a long time, the sun sets. A sense of quietness and coldness enveloped Suliang and Wan Qing. It's a bit cold, master, shall we go back? Speaking of which, didn't we have lunch too? We feel a little hungry. Suliang stood up and asked Wan Qing beside him. Well, okay, let's go back. Wan Qing nodded, hugged Suliang's arm tightly, and said like a baby, "Tonight, I want to be with you, just the two of us. Besides, I want to eat what you made. Master, last night we just..." "Well, don't you want to? You are willing, your master wishes it, how dare you refuse?" "Humph, that's pretty much it."